as usual, and we will fill for a minute or so, and then do the thing. Yeah, Star
Yes.
Wars, right?
Right.
That's right.
Yes.
Star Wars sounds like something that a Klingon would yell on the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Star Worf, and Worf goes, "I'm a Klingon," and then he gets his ass kicked.
We could always do a follow up episode about Star Trek, but I would be that might be a good one for you guys to do when I'm not around because I will be like, yeah, I've heard of Star Trek. Okay, bye.
Yeah, there aren't very many Star Trek FPSs or RTSs, or
There are some though.
well, not a
There,
lot.
there's, yeah, that didn't, yeah.
What was
You
it
okay over there,
called?
Dirk?
Elite Force.
I'm trying to think, like, because the Armada for Star Wars is sort of like a tabletop thing. I don't think Star
Your
Trek
Armada.
got the same thing.
I don't know, but we're
Like,
not
there's not
actually
a
doing
Star
a
Trek
Star Trek
equivalent.
episode, so it doesn't matter right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go. Oh, jam! Hello again, and welcome to the Mana Pool, or the Force Reservoir. No, what? I don't have anything topical we could change the name to. The hyperdrive.
Hmm.
Fuel. Okay, anyway. This is the Manipool number 724, and I am Chewie.
Yeah, you are.
If I was a Star Wars character, I would be Chewie, I guess. And I
That
got
seems
these,
appropriate.
uh, because I'm so big and scary and strong, let's say. Uh, I have these other rebel scum here with me.
Hi, I'm Brian, the Tangent Master and Lead Rambler. Oh, that's backwards. I don't know. Since Chewie said it, I've been trying to think of who I would be. And I could go for something heroic, Luke or Anakin or whatever, but let's face it. Let's really, really, really face it. C3PO all the way.
That's pretty funny.
I was thinking Jocasta Nu.
I don't know who that is.
It's the librarian lady.
I was going to say, is that racist?
Is that the librarian lady who didn't even know that the cloning planet existed?
Something like that.
Yeah, no. I'll stick with
It should have been on
C3PO,
the
thank you.
charts.
If it's not there, it doesn't exist. Ha ha ha. Bit presumptuous.
Oh, for God's sake. Let's get through the intros at some point tonight.
Yeah. um, I'm Mike, and I don't know. Maybe I would be Obi-Wan, for my tendency to talk around the point when I really don't want to answer a question.
And I'm Dirk, the self-proclaimed greenest man alive and moral compass of the group. And my Star Wars character would lean heavily on Grand Admiral Thrawn.
That's a classic. From a certain point of view, according to Obi-Wan.
Oh my God. What was it we determined at some point that every decision Obi-Wan made throughout the entirety of everything was just wrong.
I don't remember that,
I think
but
it was Bill, actually, who's the one who said that. No, it wasn't one of you guys. I get all you nerds confused.
Because there's so many of us.
So yeah, in case you can't tell, in this episode we're talking about Star Wars, but not the movies,
no.
because we've already talked about those. When did we do that?
We could always
it's-
talk more, but not this time.
It's come up from time to
Episode
time.
649 from May 2022. And then May 2020, there's a Dorks Just Chatting named Mostly Star Wars Talk. Really? That one's only 24 minutes long, though, because that's back when I would split up the Dorks Just Chatting episodes. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, that was probably me moaning and groaning mostly about the canon versus legend stuff.
That sounds about right. And I will say, when we're talking about Star Wars, Dirk and I both agree this is not a chance to moan and whine about what we like about the new movies, what we hate about the new movies, that sort of stuff. This is more about what we enjoy and exploring, kind of like we did with Castlevania, how the franchise has grown from a series of movies to all the things that it is, and not attacking any one particular aspect of it.
Well, for a true nerd, every day is a new opportunity to complain about something you like, but for the sake of cooperation, I'll play along with you.
I mean, I'm still going to complain about stuff. So, yeah. How do we want to do this? Just rattle something off and go off on it?
Yeah, I was going to do a brief overview of the series because we're not talking about the movies, but the movies are where it started. So, if you were a young lad back in 1977, which was
None
before
of us.
I was born,
It was before all of us, but only slightly before most of us.
you may have heard of, Star Wars coming out. And that was the original one. I think it wasn't even called Episode 4 yet, right? They just called it Star
It was just
Wars.
called A New Hope.
It was just called Star Wars.
Oh yeah, it was just Star Wars, and then later on, it was A New Hope when the other ones came around, and then later on it was Episode 4.
Okay. But the first trilogy was released there's a new episode every 3 years, 77, 80, and 83. And 83 was at least new enough that Return of the Jedi was kind of hot stuff when I was growing up, and I always liked that one. And then we went for a long period of time where we thought it was over. And for, I think, a lot of us growing up, that was Star Wars. I had heard rumors about comic books. At one point, I saw a movie that was just about the Ewoks. It was kind of weird.
Was that a made-for-TV movie, I want to say?
It might have been. It was definitely aimed at a younger audience, that is for sure. But this was Star Wars. And when the prequels came out starting in 1999, this was huge. It was like, whoa, we're getting more Star Wars? That's a thing you can do? So that was kind of my attitude, was like, oh, very, very fresh, very new. I have feelings about the prequels. Mike, I'm going to say this once. I'm going to say it once for the whole episode. I'm never going to say it again.
All
You
right.
ready?
Go for it.
Around the survivors, a perimeter create.
I was trying to go in this with some optimism, but you
I'm
have
getting it
dashed
out of the way. I'm getting out of the way, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. We rag on them a little bit. A little bit. But this was new Star Wars movies at a time when we didn't think that was ever going to happen. Star Wars was the original trilogy, and now we have more of them? That's crazy. And with that came more video games, more card games, and we'll get into all that. And those were released in 99, 2002, and 2005. And then after the Inquisition, some people have feelings about this, and I get it, of Lucasfilm
Excuse me.
and Star Wars in particular by Disney, you had The Force Awakens in 2015, The Last Jedi 2017, Rise of the I can get it out, I promise.
I
The
don't know about
Rise
that.
of Skywalker in 2019, which it's crazy to think. So those were coming out every 2 years. They felt a bit rapid fire. And to me, it's kind of crazy to think, oh, wait a minute. There hasn't been a Star Wars film since COVID. That's
Yeah.
kind of, what are they doing? Now they put out like a ton of TV shows.
Yep.
But those are again, I know we're not talking about the movies exactly, but because the movies are really where this series started, I just kind of wanted to have that as a background, especially because a lot of video games were tie into this movie. Not necessarily all of them, and there's been a lot of video games. There's been a lot of Star Wars video games. I guess once we get past that original synopsis, what I will say, my first experience with Star Wars outside of the films, and really even outside of the Star Wars card game, which was definitely something I played that long before Magic, was probably the Super Star Wars video games for the Super Nintendo, because most of the games on the Super Nintendo had to be called Super something, otherwise you might not know what platform it was on. And I remember when these started to come out, they did one for each movie in the original trilogy, because that's what they had at the time. They were a big deal. Nintendo Power was like, this is the future, and, hype, 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 which, turns out, young Brian would have been a bit surprised by this, but it turns out Nintendo Power was basically just an advertisement for Nintendo video games. Shocker,
Wait, what?
I know. Yeah, right? Although it was funny, there really weren't ads. And then I picked up like what was it? Gaming Inquest or something? Game Inquest Gaming, something like that. Some video game
Game
magazine.
Pro or EGM?
Any of those. And I'm like, wow, this is like ads every other page. How do you get through this? And I never made the connection that Nintendo Power didn't need to do that, because every article was also an ad. But it was a bit interesting to kind of take that perspective. So, but yeah, my first exposure was definitely through those games, and they were super hyped, and honestly, I think really good. But I do think maybe a bit overhyped. Because looking back at it now, yeah, they were good, but they were not amazing.
Those games
And
were dicks.
what's that? Say that again.
Those games were dicks.
Why don't you explain why they were male genitalia?
So the first game is just too hard. Like it's just too hard. Super Star Wars is just too hard. And it's a little bit janky. Once you get the lightsaber later, you can tell the lightsaber was sort of a afterthought, because it doesn't play very well compared to your blaster. And I think you're only Luke in the first game.
I think so.
But it was just way too hard. There's just hordes and hordes and hordes of enemies that never end, and everything sucks all the time. And then the other two games were also too hard. Now they're beautiful. The graphics are amazing. the gameplay by and large is nice and smooth. Who made these damn things? JVC? Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Do you play as other... Later stages allow the player to control Smuggler and pilot Han Solo or Chewbacca the Wookiee. Wow, I had completely forgotten about that because I don't think I ever made it that far.
I think I made it further in that game than I did the sequel, Empire Strikes Back. Super Empire Strikes Back.
It had a few vehicle levels where you would pilot the land speeder and shoot womp rats and Jawas and whatnot, and the X-wing at the end. I'm pretty sure you did the trench run on the Death Star because of course you did.
Of course you did. I will also, let's go ahead and get this out of the way right away. I don't think there has been another scene in cinema that has been portrayed in as many video games. I'm saying a scene as Hoth. Every. I'm surprised it didn't make it. Go ahead.
The very first licensed Star Wars video game was the Battle of Hoth.
Really? That predated this?
It was an Atari 2600 game.
I think they would have fit the Battle of Hoth into Super Star Wars A New Hope if they could have, like as a trailer, because it was in The Empire Strikes Back, but that makes sense. It was in at least one, if not more, of the Rogue Squadron, which we'll get to those. I feel like it has been. It was in Shadows of the Empire. I think the scenario almost
first level of Shadows of the Empire, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think and it's cool.
No, it wasn't the first level.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
If it wasn't the first level, it was definitely the second one.
There's something very video game-ish of, hey, you're in the speeder. You're in the speeder. It can't fly away. Like, it's not a spacecraft. And you've got these giant things, and some of them you can blow up, and some of them you have to spin around them and tie them up. And it looks like, I'm sure every prospective later video game designer, because they, came out in 1980, was like, oh baby, this is literally a boss level that writes itself, right? So, I think you controlled the most characters in Super Return of the Jedi, because I think you controlled Han,
each
Luke,
chapter
Leia.
I think had a different playable character.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not a different one,
So,
but various chapters had different playable characters. You were, like you said, you were Luke, Han, Chewie. You played as Leia in her bounty hunter disguise at one point, I think. Is that it? Was it just the 4? I think you played as Luke in a different outfit in a later level.
Ooh, costume change. I did feel, though, that whereas one was too difficult, and I don't know about you, I actually thought Empire was harder, but Return of the Jedi, I rented, I never owned, and I beat it before I returned it. It was almost too much the other way. It was almost too easy. All too easy, you might even say.
Which is something that the game said to you when you continued?
Something like that, yeah.
I think it went all too easy. Like it used the clip from the movie. But yeah, I mean, at the time, the difficulty was just this is what you got because, they're Super Nintendo games. I hated the endlessly respawning enemies and the fact that you didn't have any sort of invincibility time. There was no latency when you took damage, and then like if an enemy was pushing into you, your health bar just went down. Like it wasn't take a hit, flash for a second to get away. In at least one of them. Pretty sure it was Empire's the one I'm thinking of. Because on the first level where you're running around on Hoth on your Tauntaun, you can just die. Just bleh.
Yeah. That's true.
But, so, like, playing them now, are like, Jesus Christ, these are too hard. But, you know, video games and the way we play them were different back then. I hate to sound, old, but back then you just kept hammering away at a game until you got it. Because you didn't have 8,000 games that in your backlog that you wanted to play.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. Like, you die 18 times, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll get it on 19. It really was the Dark Souls of Super Nintendo games.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were quality. They're all, I'm pretty sure, pretty highly regarded.
Yeah. I don't know that they've stood the test of time as well as some other games.
Oh, but yeah, definitely not. Nintendo Power staff rated the, which one is this? Empire, as the 4th best SNES game of 1993. GamePro named it the best SNES game of 1993.
Wow.
I know we're not going into the movies, but this is movie tangent. You know, it's close to it anyway. I get why people like Empire, and it is objectively a good movie. But I also feel like it's the safe movie to say when you're like, oh, which one's best? Empire. Just because it's subversion, right? The good guys don't win, and you build up more of the characters, so there are very good reasons for it. But I don't know. While I enjoy it, I've just never felt like, oh, it's the most amazing one to me. I think because I don't know. I'm not one of those like anti-establishment. Like everybody else loves it, so I have to hate it. But I've always felt it was a bit.
Why are we talking about the movie?
Let's keep going because it's tied into the game.
Yeah, I really don't.
Let's keep going.
Look, even the most like the biggest jerk of a Star Wars fan in history, well, in fictional history, and that's Randall from Clerks, when he asked Dante what's your favorite Star Wars movie, and Dante goes Empire, Randall's response was blasphemy. And he's the one who, you'd think would be the one going, oh, well, clearly this is the better movie because he's Randall from Clerks. And if you haven't seen Clerks, I don't know if I can tell you to watch Clerks. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to tell you to watch Clerks, because anyway. So what else we got? Hey, we mentioned Shadows of the Empire.
We did.
Yep. That first level was the best one, and then after it's meh, it's okay.
What? Oh my god.
Some of the platforming in that game is
It's real janky.
Well, no kidding. It's a Nintendo 64 game. The platforming in the
I enjoyed
Nintendo 64 platformers was janky.
And the final battle with the Skyhook, I always enjoyed that. It felt 3D, like you could move around in all directions. That's what 3D is. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you could dislike Shadows.
I mean, it's not the best game, but yeah,
it's not the best game.
This was Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. It takes place between.
Was it a release title? Between
Empire and Jedi. If it wasn't a launch title, it was real close. I can't remember.
A launch title? What do you mean?
Like available at the launch of the
64
platform? Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that came later.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think it was a launch one, but I think it was launched within a year of the 64's launch.
Let's see here. Aha, list of Nintendo 64 games by release date? Why are there so many of these that just say unreleased? Here we go. So yeah, at launch it wasn't quite, but it came out in December. The game launched in September, and there were only in America, that is. It launched September 96, and there were only 7 other games total, according to
So maybe
That
not
was- it was a
launch,
big
but real
draw.
close.
That was the thing. It was a big draw to get on the 64 because there was a Star Wars game where you were part of the Battle of Hoth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like they said, that is the first level. I could have sworn that came later, but
Yeah.
no.
And later, I think in the Boba Fett level where you're facing off against him, you get a jetpack. And how awesome is that? So
But
it
even
was, yeah, the controls were janky, and I did die to camera a couple times. But it definitely felt awesome.
I mean, if you died to camera, that means you were in third person, and you should have switched to first. Nerd.
Who plays in first? Who plays in third person?
But so yeah, you're in the Battle of Hoth at the beginning. You can do the launch the tow cable and spin around to take out the AT-ATs, and that's completely insane to Star Wars nerds. Because this is the first time I'd ever done it. I don't know when the various PC games that allowed you to do that came out, but on consoles, this was the first time, and holy crap, it was amazing. But then after that, you're in Echo Base on foot, wandering around shooting stuff, and there are wampas that you can shoot. You know, the thing that knocked Luke out and hung him upside down in a cave and was gonna eat him.
Yep.
And this was the first time we'd ever gotten to see a wampa, because in the original you didn't get that shot of the wampa standing up and looking at the camera. You just had a couple of quick like, "Bleh," and that was it.
Yeah, there was a planned scene that got cut where there were some wampas in captivity at the base, and C-3PO like tore down a danger sign from a door to like set a trap for the invading Imperial forces or something like that, and they got ambushed by some wampas in there when they opened the door.
Yep.
That's
That's all the
hilarious.
deleted stuff. Yeah.
Well, apparently he took the signs down in the game too, because I remember wandering around and opening a door and there's a wampa, and I was like, "Oh Jesus!" Because those things were bullet sponges.
Oh yeah.
But like, wasn't this the game where you have to fight an ATST on foot? Was that this game, or was that Dark Forces?
I think it was this game. I think the boss of the Hoth level that you were on on foot was an ATST.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what this Wikipedia summary says.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So yeah, you had to fight one of the two-legged walkers on foot.
The
and
chicken
that was
walkers.
that blew my mind when that thing walked up and looked down at me. I was like,
Yeah, you were not the only one to have that experience.
because you got to remember, when this game came out, it was after my birthday, so I would have been 16, so I was just a twerp. Don't you say it.
Yeah, and you're playing a Star Wars game, and it's in 3D, and you get a jetpack, and you can fly, and you're this Han Solo guy who's not Han Solo, but he might as well be Han
Dash
Solo.
Rendar.
Yeah.
Renee came to check on
he
me
was
when I shrieked, you guys.
That's good. I'm glad you did. Dark, what did you say?
He was the stand-in for Han Solo since Han Solo was out after Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Because that, like in the novels, that's what happens. Is it all takes place after Empire, and it's like, oh yeah, he was there at the Battle of Endor or Battle of Hoth and blah blah blah. And so yeah, Dash Rendar sort of is the stand-in for Han Solo while Han Solo is on ice.
But yeah, it's a fun game because you can switch. I think. Wait, can you switch back and forth between first and third person?
I don't know. I don't
remember.
I
Oh.
don't remember.
This level introduces the game's most numerous third/first person shooting levels. So I'm guessing you could, probably using the C buttons.
If my memory serves correct, I spent most of my time in third person because of the janky controls and everything. Because you'd be like, I'm gonna jump over this chasm, and then you fall. And so it's just easier to be in third person, be like, okay, now jump. Yay, I didn't fall into the chasm. But in gunfights, first person was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
As long as you didn't have to move.
Yeah, you fight IG-88, you fight Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett?
Boba Fett.
Where? You ride speeder bikes through Mos Eisley, and that level is the worst.
That level actually is the worst.
Gosh. Forgot about
I had
that one.
forgotten about so much trauma.
Yeah, because if you misjudge going through an archway and you hit the wall, you just stop. And I'm
Yes.
pretty sure
Yeah.
you were chasing somebody, or you had to keep up with somebody or something. And by the time you can get away from the wall and get going forward again, you've lost. So, yeah. But it was very well received. Everybody loved it. I seem to remember it was some sort of multimedia thing. I think there was a novel that went with it. Or a...
Yeah.
Well, the novel is what the game was based on.
Comic books, right?
Yes.
There were Dark Horse comics.
Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. Shadows of the Empire. Multimedia project released by Lucasfilm in 1996. A novel, comic series, video game, trading cards, soundtrack, and toy line. So yeah, it was one big thing that they were doing.
Yeah.
Because remember, this is before the prequels. So a big multimedia Star Wars thing happening all at once was a big deal, as opposed to now where it's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think the notable thing about Shadows of the Empire was when George Lucas either read the book or played the game or something, he was like, he enjoyed it enough that he kind of wished he had turned it into like a movie or a something, because he's like, I actually really liked it.
Nice. So yeah, you were Dash Rendar, and the big villain was Prince Xizor, Xizor, who was green
Xizor,
and had a ponytail.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in further stories, Dash Rendar went on to appear in other expanded universe stuff. I guess. Maybe.
I think so.
No. He dies at the end of the book.
What?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all.
In the book, he dies at the end of it. His ship is destroyed, if I remember correctly.
I thought he made it out, like it was a feint sort of thing.
If it was, then it was retconned later on. But at the end of the book, they're like, yeah, his ship is gone, and we didn't find we couldn't find his body. So it's like maybe one of those things where it's like, yeah, we left room for, you know, if we wanted to bring him back, sort of thing. But the reality, but in that moment, it's like, yeah, we didn't find his dead body, so, you know, but he wasn't there.
I thought it was
Lame.
left deliberate.
Well, and that was the thing, is you played the video game, it's like, oh man, you know, this will be great and go on. But when you read the book, you know, he dies at the end of it.
Well, there you go then. Screw that guy. So,
Mike, what was your first experience with Star Wars outside of the franchise, outside of the movies?
Outside of the movies, I don't. It was one of two things. It was either this like big there was two things that I had together. There was a Return of the Jedi picture book, like a movie picture book, and also this other fold out thing that was it folded out like a newspaper, and it was nothing but like big nice color pictures of characters and aliens and everything, with like short little bios about them. But it was that and like a short, like big format picture storybook of Return of the Jedi. So it was either those books, which I got around the same time, don't remember when or from who, or watching a neighbor play X-Wing on his computer. There was a neighbor down the street who was a big early tech adopter. So he had a nice gaming computer, you know, nice for at the time, whenever that was, early 90s. And he had X-Wing, and I watched him. He showed it off one time when we were over there visiting, and it was awesome.
Cool. I don't know that I've ever really seen that.
It was pretty cool. It's X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which also came out later. They were DOS-based games.
That everybody that I knew was into X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
oh yeah.
Yes.
And I did not have a computer of my own, and my mom was not going to let me play that. I was able to play Descent, but that was about it.
Oh. Years later, I found a bargain copy of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and I tried my best to install it and get it to run on the computer we had at the time, but I could just not get it to work. I could not get it set up right. Like, I had to make a separate boot disk and start it from the command line, and I just couldn't figure out how to set it up right, even with the instructions that were in the package.
I do not miss old PC gaming.
No one misses it. We might have some fond memories of it.
Yeah, some of it, the early days, you had to be a real gearhead to actually know what you were doing and get it going.
Hey, we had mentioned, I had mentioned that there was an Ewok movie, and somebody asked if it was made for TV or not.
It was.
It was Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure, and it premiered on ABC.
The sequel, The Battle for Endor.
I only ever saw Caravan of Courage.
I only ever saw Battle for Endor.
And Caravan of Courage has nothing to do with Star Wars, like the rest of Star Wars.
No, it's just
So
set
it was-
in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's set in the Star Wars universe, and it has it has like Wicket and some of the other Ewoks you might recognize from the film, but there's no reference to the Rebellion or the Empire or anything.
Yeah. It is. I'm trying to think of a modern. Well, it's like the modern like Star Wars stories. They're just also happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey Mike.
Yes.
Nowadays, you can just get the TIE Fighter Special Edition on Steam for $10 and click play.
Well, good. I'm glad someone went through the trouble to set that up.
Oh, and here's X-Wing versus TIE Fighter 2. Oh, cool. Oh, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance, and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter are all just here on Steam that you can just play.
Awesome.
And these are more like space dogfighting simulators.
Yeah.
As much as I like Star Wars, these types of games, by and large, don't do much for me, so I never had any interest in them. But they're there. Battle for Endor.
Oh, I mentioned earlier the very first licensed Star Wars game, an Atari 2600 game that was based on the Battle for Endor. I actually played that too. One of my friends had an Atari 2600 at his house, and one of the games he had was that Star Wars game. It's pretty cool. It's like just that first battle, and you're a speeder flying around. The objective is to take down all the AT-ATs before the one in the front of the line gets to Echo Base. I didn't remember it having the tow rope thing, and looking through reading descriptions of it now, it doesn't sound like it had the tow rope thing. You just shot at the AT-AT's head or body until they fell down.
I mean, it's a 2600 game. It's not going to be terribly
Yeah,
complicated.
Atari is. Yeah.
There are limitations, but but they did a lot with what they had to work with.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys remember the arcade game? Not the like super early one with the vector graphics, but I mean the one from like that we would remember in arcades that you could sit in, had like a cockpit. I always sucked at it, but man, it was pretty. And it was blasting Star Wars music. No? Nobody hung out in arcades much?
I hung out in arcades a decent amount. I know I don't want to get
seeing
too off
it,
topic,
but I
but
never climbed in.
I
and played.
remember like 3 arcade games. I remember there was a Pit Fighter game where it was like the most photorealistic game I'd ever seen in my life, and I'm like, whoa. I remember the Simpsons game, and I remember there was a game based off of the movie Aliens that was incredible, and I put so much money into that machine and never got very far. But no, I don't remember Star Wars arcade game.
It was fun. And very pretty, because it was an arcade game. It looked way better than stuff we had.
Was
at
it
home.
was it a Death Star trench run, or was it more than that?
I think that was one of the later levels, I think.
The one I remember was it had a joystick, and you'd sit in the seat, and you could handle a lightsaber. You could move the joystick to move the lightsaber. You would have I don't remember if it was running gun, but I think there was where you were flying something. I played that from start to finish. I think I blew about $20.
Nice.
They got their money's worth out of me.
So it's
Casinos are looking at this kid going, oh yeah.
I'm talking about either the one from 93 or 98. I'm thinking probably 98. 98. But I can't. Everything I'm seeing is a freaking YouTube video, and I don't want to play a YouTube video while we're doing the show, so.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of pictures of the cabinet. I'm like, thanks. Show me the game. And it's like, here's the cabinet. I'm like, thanks.
But what about the game that you played on the cabinet? Nah.
Yeah, okay. I'm finally seeing some screenshots. Yeah, this was it. So cool. So, I already mentioned Dark Forces once. Dark Forces was a PC first-person shooter. Let's see here. Star Wars came out in 95. And it did... I had Doom 2. And I played a lot of Doom 2 back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Dark Forces. And you could do something crazy that you couldn't do in Doom. You could look up and down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this, and I recognize that cover art. I don't think I ever actually played the game, but I remember seeing it probably and being like, "Oh, that's great." But I was on an allowance, and it's around this time that I'm saving up for like Zelda Ocarina of Time and stuff, so this didn't make the cut. But I remember this cover art.
Yeah, this was something we borrowed from a friend. We didn't own it. Borrowed from one of my brother's friends. And it was one of those things where, to make the most of the time, like one of us would be playing while the other one was watching, and then we'd trade off at some point. Yeah, this one had real 3D too, didn't it? Like actual 3D levels.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
I
it had
think
levels that you could have a floor down here and a floor up above it. Unlike Doom, which everything had to be treated as if it was flat, and then the game faked raising or lowering, so you couldn't have like a walkway going over a place where you could, like a hallway where you could walk. You just that wasn't possible.
I remember using the level creator for Doom, and it's fascinating. It was both simple and yet complicated at the same time, because really everything was just a series of corridors and rooms. And the length to which the game would simulate height was fascinating without actually, having room in the engine, I guess, for different heights. It was really good game design for what they had at the time. It was definitely working within the limitations.
Yeah, and then the Jedi game engine here could do that. I heard an anecdote recently on, I don't remember if it was in an article or a YouTube video or what, but when one of the Johns from Doom, either Carmack or Romero, probably Romero, because Carmack's too egotistical to ever say something like this, but he said he played Dark Forces and was blown away by the tech that they had managed to put in it compared to Doom.
And I mean, that's
in
how technology
Dark
goes.
Forces was a first-person shooter, and you were Kyle Katarn, who was just
Kyle Katarn.
Do what?
I was saying, Kyle Katarn. I didn't remember his name.
Yeah, he was essentially like Dash Rendar. He's just some random protagonist they made up for this. I think he's a mercenary or something that they hired to go do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember what really blew me away was when the that thing in the trash compactor in the first movie.
Yeah, the thing with the tentacles.
Something.
The Dianoga.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, you actually, if you were wandering around the trash compactor area of wherever you were in this game, those things would come at you and attack you, and they are much bigger than the one little eyeball thing that you saw. It was so cool, and like the big scary thing in this were, well, what were they called? Dark Troopers? No, that's what they came to be called later. What are they called? Oh, they are Dark Troopers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this game was so successful that it kicked off a whole new series, which is now called the Jedi Knight series, because the next game was called Star Wars Jedi Knight: Dark Forces 2. because they were
Gotta
like,
have that
we're going to
colon.
spin this off into a whole new series, but we want people to know it goes with the first one. So it's Jedi Knight,
Mhm.
Dark Forces 2. And then from there, we got Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith, Jedi Knight 2, even though it was 3, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Knight Jedi Academy.
And Katarn was there. He just that it just so happened that he was a, Force user in hiding.
Of course. Because they wanted to make him a main protagonist, so of course he's got to have Force powers. Let's be silly. But yeah, and this one actually not this one, but the series actually crossed into the expanded universe because in Dark Forces 2 you could play as Mara Jade. And if you know who that is, you're like, really? Mara Jade was an assassin sent to kill Luke Skywalker and then became his sweetie or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
I think they got
That's-
married.
Yep, and had a kid,
Yeah,
Ben Skywalker.
She snapped out of her assassin training when she killed a clone named Luke with 2 U's.
Well, because the last thing that she had ever been told to do by the Emperor was kill Luke Skywalker. So she looked at the clone and said,
That's
"Yeah,
Luke
this'll
Skywalker.
do." Yeah. It was. I think the book was called The Last Command. So it's like, I
was.
see what you did there.
It was
What was her nickname? The Emperor's
the Emperor's
Emperor's
hand.
hand. Okay, I was like, fist? No, that's something different entirely.
The Emperor's fist.
Don't ask. Tell you when you're older.
Yeah, please do. I mean, don't. I mean, what?
But yeah, Dark Forces, the entire Jedi Knight series, by the way, is also on Steam and probably other stuff. And Dark Forces, the first one, just recently, in 2024, got a remaster by Night Dive Studios. And Night Dive Studios, if you like any old PC first-person shooter, Night Dive either has done or really wants to do a remaster of it. They're the ones who redid Doom 64. They redid the one with the let me just click. Here we go. Night Dive Studios. System Shock. There we go. They redid System Shock. They redid The Thing. They've done Dark Forces. I first became aware of them when they redid the first Turok game for the 64.
Oh yeah, Turok.
They've redone Turok 2 and 3. Forsaken, Blood, Fresh Supply, Sin, Shadow Man, Blade Runner, like Rise of the Triad. So many. The Doom 64 again was amazing. Their remake of it. I mean, the game itself is already good. They don't change a lot. They tend to just mostly remaster the graphics and then throw in a few little updates here and there where, as necessary. But they really do good work. So highly recommend it. If you ever see an old game that you remember from your youth and it says Night Dive, you're safe to get it. It will be quality. Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag hey Night Dive. Feel free to sponsor me. So did any of you guys ever play Dark Forces, or is it just me? Well, and Mike.
I played a little bit of it.
I did not.
Oh well. So what else we got?
Let me pull this up. One that I'll throw out there show the diversity that the Star Wars games went through. None of you guys have played this. None of the dorks have played this. But Star Wars Rebellion.
Wars Rebellion.
What's that?
So Star Wars Rebellion is a resource management game. So in this, there are systems, and there's 10 planets per system. And what you can do is you are in control of everything. You are in control of resource collection. You're in charge of the ships. You're in charge of the shipyards, the training facilities, and the construction yards. You're in charge of all the characters that are available in the game. And you're in charge of, if you're the Empire, you have 3 goals to win the game.
Wait, hey, Dirk.
You have to control Coruscant.
Dirk.
Yes.
Are you talking about the board game or the video game?
The video game.
Okay. I'm trying to follow along here, but I found both, and I'm like,
the video game.
Say the name again.
Rebellion.
Star Wars Rebellion.
Rebellion. Okay.
So in it, there are 3 things you have to do to win as the Empire. You have to control Coruscant. The Emperor has to be alive. You have to be in control of him. He doesn't actually die. You have to be in control of him. And sorry, there were more. There was a couple more. You have to capture Luke Skywalker, and you have to destroy the Rebel base. That's how you win as the Empire. To win as the Rebels, you have to control Coruscant. You have to capture the Emperor, and not have Luke be captured. Because I think if the Rebel base gets destroyed, I mean, that sucks. But I think you can still win the game. But the whole point is for you not to lose it. But the way the game works is you can send diplomats to the planets and sway them to your side. So certain characters are good at diplomacy. Certain characters are good at like sneaking in and collecting information, or assassinating or capturing other characters. And some of your characters are military leaders, like they either are admirals, generals, or commanders. If they're admirals, they're in charge of the capital ships. If they're commanders, they're in charge of the fighters. And if they're generals, they're in charge of the ground forces. And ground forces are what you apply to the planets in order to control them. And it's also one where you have certain characters that are research people. So you send them and they research, so you get new units. Like, you don't start off with all the characters. You have to recruit them. And some of those are ones like that you gain new capital ships and new troops, like the Dark Trooper is something that you can research into, and so on. So like the Rebel ships all start out as sucky ships. Like, the only capital ships that are there are essentially, I think, a dreadnought, and most of it are just like little fighter ships, like ships that can are good against fighters. And the Empire has like the Star Destroyers, which are the big ones, but they don't have really good fighter suppression, so you have to research into them. But it's a game that if it was back in my younger years, and it was keeping track of how much I played that game, it easily would have over 1,000 hours.
Holy crap.
Oh, I played the hell out of that game.
I could tell you really, and I mean this very respectfully, because it sounds like something you really had a lot of love for.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to keep up with
Steam,
your
I have
explanation.
30 hours in it. My only problem the only reason why I don't play it more is because it's not turn-based, it's a time-based, it's got a running clock going on in it. And whenever it rolls into the next day, stuff happens. Like, fleets will come out of hyperspace on the set day they're supposed to. Stuff gets built on the day it's supposed to be done. And so because it's constantly running this timer, it doesn't autosave because it's old school. So occasionally the game will just boot off and just be like, nope, I'm done playing this. And the problem is if I haven't saved in like 100 days, I lost 100 days of progress, which is the equivalent of a lot of stuff got built, a lot of places got conquered, a lot of stuff happened in 100 days, and so when the computer's like, yeah, I'm done, because it is an old game.
Oh yeah, old games are punishing with that.
Yeah, but when it does that, I'm like, yeah, I'm done playing this game. Because you just lost like 2 hours of progress, and I just don't want to deal with that. So yeah, but it's a game like it was in 98, 97, 98 is when it came out, and like I said, it was just such a great game. It's not Shadows of War. I think Shadows of War was sort of the spiritual successor to it, but it didn't allow you to do all the resource management that Rebellion lets you do. But Shadows of War was the closest, more modern game in that vein where you could say, I want these troops, I want this, send troops to this planet, build these capital ships, and do all this. So it's the closest you got to Rebellion without it being Rebellion.
Gotcha.
Empire at War. Sorry, not Shadows of War. It's Empire at War is what it was called. That's the spiritual successor.
Okay. This one looks more like your standard RTS game.
Yes.
Whereas
but
Rebellion looked
Rebellion
a lot more...
was resource management, whereas Empire at War it's kind of like an RTS, but with some resource management involved as well. I played it for a little bit. I don't know. I just didn't really get into it as much.
Huh. Like, it makes perfect sense that there are like 4X Grand Strategy Star Wars games, but I've just never heard of one. So
Yeah.
Dirk just blew me away.
Yeah. That's why like Rebellion was such a wonderful game to me, because like you could see the systems that were in the Outer Rim. So the core planets were all revealed, but the Outer Rim planets were not. Like you could see them, but you didn't know anything about them. So the Rebellion was hiding in the Outer Rim. So you had to send probe droids or take ships or something to each one of the planets in the Outer Rim to figure out which one was there. And what was kind of cool too is if you sent agents to a planet to gather information like, hey, so and so's on this planet. Well, that information is only as current as when the agent recovered that information. So if you were like, well, I'm going to send somebody to assassinate them, well, they may have moved that person off the planet in the time it takes for you to send somebody from another planet to that planet. So your agent will show up and be like, yeah, the guy wasn't there.
Ooh,
So
sneaky
there was
rebels.
parts where it's kind of like, there's information available, but that information could easily be out of date by the time the game clock rolls around to that day.
That's interesting.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I like that.
So I was about to say we should move out of video games, but no one's talked about Knights of the Old Republic yet.
It's because there are so many other really great games.
Right?
But yes, Knights of the Old Republic is the game that essentially birthed the Mass Effect series.
Is it an RPG? How do you like?
So Knights of the Old Republic is an RPG.
By BioWare.
By BioWare, like early BioWare. it takes place well before the trilogy.
Right. The Old Republic.
Yeah, it's like old. It's very much, very in the Old Republic when Jedi were very plentiful. And yeah, you are in control of a party, just like in Mass Effect, who all bring different things to the table, and uh, there's things that unravel, and you learn as you go through the game. The big reveal in that one, which I mean, for a game that's been out since I can't even tell when this.
Don't spoil the big reveal, because that has nothing to do with the conversation.
Okay, well, the game was released in 2003.
Yeah.
And this was one of the big draws for the Xbox, the OG Xbox. Like, this is the game that, aside from Halo, that everyone was like, I want an Xbox, because they wanted to play Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh
It's
god,
the
I
main
forgot it
reason
was
why
only
I
on
bought an
Xbox
Xbox.
for the longest time.
Yeah. But yeah, like I say, you're in control of a party of 3. You can rotate through your people. They level up. They've got every time that they level up, you can put their skill points into some sort of trait so that they're better at this, and they gain equipment. You go and explore to try and defeat the bad guy at the end who's chasing you the whole time, and everything.
How does combat work? Is it just traditional RPG, or is there anything like?
Combat was really weird. So you can say, I want you to. So it's not quite turn-based, but kind of turn-based. It's because you can. So what was cool is you could say, this character, I want you to swing with your lightsaber twice. I want you to do force push once, and then I want you to swing with your lightsaber twice. Or some combination. Like, you could create a running list of however many commands to do, and you could put them in the order you wanted the character to do them, and you could switch between the characters to do that. You could make your Jedi two-handed lightsabers or single-handed lightsabers, so you could kind of had the ability to do whatever you wanted to do force power-wise with them. Or you could just be like, yeah, I'm a Jedi, but I'm definitely going to be a gunslinger, and just forego lightsabers and just shoot up everything. But yeah, it's like they would commit attack, and then there would be the other guy gets a chance to attack, and then you get to do something, and then they would get to do something, and then numbers would pop out of everybody's heads, and hopefully your health bar didn't go down all the way before they made your numbers pop out of your head to the point of death.
Hey Brian, to answer a different part of your question, everything was calculated using D&D rules, particularly the D20 system.
Huh.
Because
I've never played.
I watched somebody streaming this a long time ago. I want to say it was probably Haley, maybe? And I remember seeing, she was at the beginning of the game, and I remember seeing her Jedi run up to somebody and swing, and nothing would happen. And then swing, and then nothing would happen. And then swing, and oh, damage! And then swing, and nothing would happen. And I'm like, and I've never seen the game in action before. I just know it by reputation. And I was like, what is going on? It's just like, it's rolling dice to see if I hit. I'm like, oh.
I had no idea. I've heard of this game, and certain characters. One of the first mobile games I really got into was Star Wars. Heroes of the Galaxy, I think it was called. I haven't played it in a while. It became a job to play it, and I'm like, I already have a job. But I enjoyed it, and they had characters from all sorts of Star Wars franchises, including legacy characters, Dirk. So they had characters through events from KOTOR, And I'm like, I don't know who these people are, but this droid, sorry, is super sassy.
HK-47 is the goat.
He just wants to kill
HK-47 is the goat.
everybody.
He is.
Yeah,
He also has the best lines ever.
yeah, if you've ever heard anyone refer to anyone as a meatbag, it's because of HK-47.
I don't know how you deal with it, Master, with all that sloshing going around.
Uh,
Oh,
in
he
the
is
game,
so funny.
in the game, he really liked to murder people. So
Yes. That was his most endearing quality. Is like, whenever people would
that was his
talk and everything,
endearing quality.
was an endearing quality is like, if you had him in the party and you're having all these dialogues and everything, occasionally he would just be like, Master, can I just shoot him? Master, permission to eviscerate this person. It was just just the comments he would just drop. He was worth having in the party purely for the comic relief of,
I got you.
I really don't care about this person. Can I please just kill him? He is very much the C3PO.
Lord.
So yes, it was also the first game that really pushed the Mandalorian culture too. So whenever you talk about the Mandalorian and whether it's in the Clone Wars or any of the TV shows and everything where they talk about, this is the way the Mandalorians had shown up in the comics, but KOTOR was the first time that they'd shown up as a culture in media outside of comic books uh, and like literary ones. This was the first like video interactiveness with the culture.
That's cool.
And so you even had a character. I can't remember what his name is. I think it was Oda. Ord was I think his last name. But anyway, this was the first chance you actually got to be like, oh, well, these guys are not just a culture about murder. They're like, no, we're very much a warrior culture, and the whole reason why we do what we do is because we're trying to be the best. So it was a really cool chance to dig into that culture that they were setting up.
It looks like the name is Canderous Ordo. Canderous Ordo?
Mm-hmm. Canderous Ordo.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, he was such a trash talker as well. He was another fun one to have in the party as well. And he shows up in the second game too, because Knights of the Republic was so awesome, they gave it a second game. And in my opinion, the second game is the better of the two. Like hands down,
that happens
better.
Because sometimes people will enjoy the story of an original versus a sequel, but a lot of times if the developers know what they're doing, the second game or third game, if they have learned from their audience and they've learned from the experience, it's better. Kingdom Hearts 1 was great. Kingdom Hearts 2 is better in every way. What were you going to say, Dirk?
The thing that, and again, this is my opinion as to why the second one was better, was the first one, you kind of are being given the chance, like, what exactly are you wanting to do? And then you find out, oh, by the way, you're also a Jedi. And so if you were the person who's like, I'm going the blaster route, well, you would have put all your time and effort into blasters only to then be told, oh yeah, you're a Jedi. So you can't undo your talent points and be like, oh, all those points I put into blasters, I want to put them into lightsabers now. And so if you didn't know going in what was going to happen, you may have invested your talent points into stuff that you later on are like, why did I do that? and they become moot. Whereas in the second game, right off the bat, you're already a Force user. So you can already be like, okay, I know where my talents are going. And so it made a little bit of a difference that way.
Interesting.
And also, I feel like the controls were a lot. They were a little bit. They were less clunky in the second one.
Again, something that usually, hopefully, gets better.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
rough when controls get worse in a sequel.
What's really neat is that the second game wasn't by BioWare; it was by Obsidian.
Yeah. And that may have played into it as well because they licensed it out to Obsidian. And like I said, Obsidian did a fantastic job, and then they did a fantastic job on the Fallout series.
Yeah, like for anyone who is like, wait, Obsidian, why does that sound familiar? Well, they made well, let's see. It looks like
Fallout New Vegas.
their first game was KOTOR 2, then Neverwinter Nights 2, and then Alpha Protocol, which nobody much remembers, but the ones that do seem to like it. Fallout New Vegas, South Park: The Stick of Truth, Pillars of Eternity 2, The Outer Worlds, not The Outer Wilds, The Outer Worlds. I always got those two confused. And more recently, Grounded. That I think Grounded is that, like, Honey, We Shrunk the Kids survival game. Yeah, where you're the tiny people in the backyard. And Avowed.
A coworker has started Avowed, and she's new, and I haven't really met her a whole lot. I've spoken, but she's like, she heard me talking about RPGs with somebody else, and she's like, I just started Avowed. I'm like, that sounds familiar, and she looked at me like I should really know what that is.
Yeah, Avowed is an action RPG set in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity. I did not know that part. A lot of people were calling it the Skyrim killer, but it's not that. But it seems to be fine.
Okay.
Seems
It
to be
looks
fine.
like a really cool game.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. So yeah, like most notably is New Vegas, and Obsidian was a bunch of people that used to work at Black Isle, and Black Isle Studios did Baldur's Gate, Baldur's Gate 2, stuff like that.
Never heard of it.
Of course not.
Kidding.
So, yeah, Obsidian makes quality stuff, or at least did back then. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. But that was then they did do Tor, which is the Old Republic, which is the MMO one. It came out while World of Warcraft was still raking in all the money. They released this one, and I mean it's still going. They still are releasing stuff for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy
But
crap.
it's on the free to play model where if you here's this stuff you can play with this until you reach things like level 10, and then at that point you're kind of locked into what you can do and you can't really progress very much. And if you want to actually do stuff like actually have inventory space and be able to craft stuff and everything, you have to purchase time in the game. Because I played it when it first came out, and I mean it was fun. It had a really great story. But I was like, I've already been playing WoW for so long. I just want to go ahead and play WoW. So I didn't play. I played it for maybe about between 3 and 6 months, and then I got off of Tor. But like I said, it was really cool. And it's still going. You can still play it.
Would you say your duty of tour ended?
Oh my god.
That would be true.
Stop.
As far as I know, it's the only game that is still going that is part of the Legends story. So it
Oh.
like everything else is now part of canon that's coming out that has been coming out for the past couple years.
Well, yeah, because that's what the newer people are gonna
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Because it came out before Disney acquired the Star Wars license,
right,
Star Wars, IP. So that's why they're like, yeah, we really can't, write you off. It's still making money. The studio still has the rights to it, but yeah, everything else since then has been with the new canon and not the Legends story.
right, makes sense.
Mike had mentioned, like the flight simulator ones, that there was X-Wing, TIE Fighter, TIE Fighter versus X-Wing, and then X-Wing Alliance. And then the most recent game of the flight simulators was Squadrons.
Well, wasn't Squadrons more of a like the Rogue Squadron games?
Yes. So yeah, you're still in control of an X-wing, and like there's the Rebel side of it where you can fly any of the Rebel fighter craft. So you can be an X-wing, a B-wing, an A-wing, and so on. And then there's the Empire storyline where you can fly as a TIE fighter, interceptor, bomber, stuff like that. Um, and the story revolves around the hawk. It's something hawk.
T-Hawk.
Can't think.
No, that's from
Not
Street
Kitty
Fighter.
Hawk.
Yeah, I remember Squadrons was like gonna be the next big thing when it came out. Like a bunch of the gamer people in the Discord were talking about it, and everybody played it for like a month and then never touched it again. And it was supposed to be. It is right now. It's on sale for $6 on Steam. Like,
Wow.
cause
See, I remember when that came out, and I asked for it for Christmas, which that's not the only way I acquire new games, but it's one of the ways that I make sure that if I get it, I'm gonna play it. And I didn't get it. And I was like, okay, cool, maybe I'll buy it later. And like you said, I stopped hearing about it, and later I was like, wait, did it ever come out? Yes, yes, it did.
yeah, I'm
But
looking at recent reviews on Steam, and a lot of people are saying that on PC the controls are terrible. It wants you to log in constantly. If your EA account gets suspended or deactivated for some reason, your game becomes non-functional. Oh,
oh, well, EA would never, ever. I can't finish that statement.
yeah.
Starhawk. That's the ship class that you're supposed to be in charge of protecting, and so on. But yeah.
Well, you mentioned this is where Brian comes back into the discussion. You mentioned Rogue Squadron.
Who?
So there were the early Super Star Wars games. There was, Shadows of the Empire, and then Rogue Squadron came out. And if I recall, there are no missions where you're on foot. It's all vehicle
You're all
based, right?
fighters.
In the first
Yeah.
one,
You're all
yeah.
fighters.
And that's the part. Also, that's where Rebel Assault is part of
Mm,
that as well, I think.
right. I remember Rogue Squadron taking off like nuts. Like it was crazy. It was yet another game with Hoth, but who cares because the Hoth scenario in that game was awesome, and you could like replay levels with more objectives. It was a bit like GoldenEye, where you can do it and just
Mm-hmm.
beat it, but maybe you have to bomb this particular facility to save a scientist or something, or you had to defeat this many TIE fighters without getting hit or whatever.
Yeah, there were optional
And
objectives to get medals, I think.
I think so. And
Something like that.
I think I got all gold medals on almost the whole game. There was one mission where Jimmy and I were trying forever, and it was a stealth mission, which stealth missions are
You had
right
to
up there
fly
with
through the
escort
canyon to
missions,
get to the other end to do stuff.
something like that.
Hmm.
But I remember sinking mad time into Rogue Squadron, and I think there was at least one sequel, right? Because it did
There were
very
two.
well.
Yeah,
There
Rogue
were two.
Leader on the GameCube in 2001. Rogue Squadron was from 98. 2001 they got Rogue Leader, which I just recently listened to Kane and Rin's podcast about the three Rogue Squadron games. So Rogue Leader, from what I understand from Kane and Rin's, was like Rogue Squadron but better. And then Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike had on foot levels and stuff and was trying to do too many things and ended up not doing any of them terribly well.
Mm. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, but they said that the first two games were definitely super sweet and on point.
And you got to, so if you played the game the first go round, it was I think it was almost all in X-Wing with some few exceptions. But when you beat the game, you can then go back and play the levels with the different Rebel craft. So I think you could do some of the mission. You could go back and be like, I'm going to do this in a Y-wing, well, no, you could pick it beforehand. I think you could pick whichever Rebel craft you wanted to do the mission in, and then, but like I guess later on you could like go back and be like, all right, well, I want to redo the mission and so on and so forth.
I think you're right. The first time where I think you were locked into one or two ships the first time, and
Hmm.
then you could unlock when you beat the mission. You
Go
can
back and
try it
play it
with
with
different
whatever craft
others.
you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I do remember the very last mission was from Dark Empire, and that was the World Devastators. And so you actually were not in an X-wing; you were in a V-wing, which was really weird ship to be in. But that's how you played that very last mission. So you were supposed to destroy one of the World Devastators in a V-wing, which essentially was like a heavy bomber.
Mm.
I remember Y wings being slow.
They were very slow, but
Which
I remember them being slow, but they also had a lot of armor, so they could take a lot of punishment.
they could, and they were the bombers, so it was a balance. But holy cow, when you go from
Yeah.
something like a B wing to a Y wing, you're just like, all right,
And
it's
the
gonna take me
A-wing,
5 minutes to fly over to the other side of the map.
whereas the A-wing, you could fly to the other side of the map, but the problem is it was so fast that if you had to do any sort of, fine maneuvering and everything, that craft would just, you'd be bouncing off everything
Oh sure.
because you were just flying around so fast.
The thing that I remember, I've never played any of the Rogue Squadron games, but the thing I remember most about it, well, one was that there was a 1969 Buick Electra 225 that you could unlock
Yeah.
and fly around. It was
Yeah.
the game's sound designer's car. But also, remember, this game came out in 98. A full 6 months before episode 1. But there was a Naboo starfighter hidden in it.
Oh,
And,
neat.
That's right.
but nobody found it. When the movie came out, LucasArts revealed the code, and everybody was like, "What?" Like, this has
And they're
been in
like,
the
"Yeah, it
game
was
the whole
here."
time, and everybody freaked out and went and plugged it back in and did the code and played as the Naboo starfighter, which
Yep.
is
Yeah.
really freaking cool.
It was cool, but also had, like, if I recall, like no shields. So
Yeah, I seem to remember it was fast and weak as far as
fast and weak.
amount of
High
damage it can take.
high skill ceiling. If you played really well, you would do well with it, but you couldn't take any hits.
Oh, and this was the one that when you bought the game, it came with the expansion pack. because that was the only way you could actually play the game is with the expansion pack in.
No,
And they
you
realized
didn't
that
have to have it. With this one, the expansion pack just gave you better.
Oh, that's right.
Textures.
You could, but you couldn't play. There was, I think, like the final level. It wouldn't play the final level because it just could not actually run it without the expansion pack. But yes, with the expansion pack, the graphics were better. It played cleaner. Yeah.
Well, again, like I said, I just listened to the Cane and Rinse on this like last week.
Okay.
I think you could play the whole game without it. It was the textures weren't. They had crappier textures without it, but with it, you had better textures, but your frame rate tanked. So it was a trade-off. You either got prettier graphics or smoother gameplay.
I don't
That
remember
happened
there
in-
being much of a difference from when I played.
I know that happened in episode 1 Racer. There were some courses. It was worse on the ones that also had environmental effects like rain or whatever, where if you were going really fast, sometimes the game would start to chug.
What game is that, Mike?
Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
It's
What's-
not.
what's
that's
that
not the
about,
Pod
Mike?
Racer?
It's
ahead.
about pod racing.
Now that's pod racing.
Oh, was that
Yeah.
the name of it? I forgot that was the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
actually
Racer.
called Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Hmm.
So what was that about? This
What?
is one that everyone loves, but me. I rented it once, didn't like it, never played it again.
Yeah, and I can understand how a first experience could be frustrating and disappointing. It was some of it was kind of harder than was necessary to play. But yeah, so the pod racing scenes in episode 1, it's that, but you can play as many of the different racing characters, both that show up in that scene and are just in the game, and it's courses all over the galaxy. You race around on your pod racers. Sometimes you take damage from the environment or from other racers, and you can make repairs on the fly at the cost of some speed, and you win races for money that you use to buy better parts to upgrade your craft and get better at racing, and it's a lot of fun. I ended up 100%ing it on the riskiest payout structure, where only the first place finisher gets anything. And me and my brother played a lot of it, and we also played. There were some secret unlockable characters that we also went in and played a lot of. I think there were some track records that we ended up getting with those secret unlockable characters. And then when you turn the game back on and look at the records for that track, it'll list the normal character that they replace when you unlock them, because you have to do the code every time you turn the game on. You got to do the code every time you turn the game on, and it replaces one of the normal characters in the roster with that unlockable person. So it'll show the record as being with the normal person if you don't have the code on when you are looking at the track records.
That's a little weird, but okay.
Yeah, it was weird, but no, it's really cool. It's really fast paced. There's plenty of strategy in there versus just go fast. Many of the tracks have alternative paths that you can take for shortcuts, or just to see something cool as you're zipping around. And yeah, it could play without the expansion pack, in which case the racer models and the environments were much simpler. But yeah, it looked way better with the expansion pack, but like you all were talking about just a few minutes ago, the frame rate would suffer under certain conditions. Like there were some times when I'd be going at top speed down a street and then trying to make a tight turn around at the like this really tight, just hairpin turn at the end of it, and the frame rate would be like go, and then bam, it picked back up, and I'd have slammed into the wall, and blown up my.
I remember
race.
crashing into things a lot. It was not a game where you were just going to hold down the accelerator the whole time without paying attention to where you were turning, what the other pods were doing. It was not a mindless racer. It was not. It was very mindful, and I struggled with it. I enjoyed it. When you had that moment where you're like, oh, and everything clicks, and you're like, oh, this is great. But it can be very frustrating to get up to that point. Absolutely.
Yeah. After you start to learn how to manage your speed properly, when you do get into situations where you can really open it up and start going as fast as possible down a certain section, it starts to get really like you're holding the controller like
Yeah.
My parents used to laugh and giggle when I would play like TIE Fighter and everything, because I would have the joystick, and whenever you make a left turn, I would lean to the left along with the stick. And so they would watch me play, and I would be mirroring what I was doing, and they used to just laugh and giggle at me doing all that.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good time to point out that in just it looks like in 2023. Oh, Dirk, you made it sound like this was new.
What?
The Star Wars Heritage Pack. It says 2023 on the Nintendo website.
On it? I don't know how, because it showed up in my feed at some point. It was like, coming out soon and all this. I didn't realize apparently it threw a 2-year-old promotional video at me.
I guess. But on Switch, you can get the Star Wars Heritage Pack, which has, let's see, KOTOR 1 and 2, The Force Unleashed, Republic Commando, Episode 1 Racer, and Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, and Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast. But not Dark Forces or Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. Weirdly. But those are on Switch.
I mean, 2023 wasn't terribly long ago.
Yeah, it was. In video
The
game
way
terms,
that
that was 1,000 years ago, bro.
The way that there's a new game like right now, and then there's a new game being released right now that's not the one I just mentioned, I get it. I remember when, a game would come out 6 months ago and you'd still be playing it, but I'm old, so.
So we haven't mentioned the greatest Star Wars video game ever, which is Star
Which
Wars
one's that?
Masters of Terrascasi on the PS1.
I'm sorry, what?
The god-awful 3D fighter wannabe.
It was in the vein of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, but it was in the Star Wars universe.
It was
Virtua
trying
Fighter, maybe.
real hard to be like Soul Calibur type game. Well, Soul Blade, I guess, at the time. And it is awful.
Yeah.
But
I played it for a little bit, and it does not have a beneficial learning curve. It is very much a game of you either learn how to play this game or you need to go find something else to play. You need to have the time to invest into this game to figure it out. I did not have that nor the patience. So I played it a few times and then was like, yeah, I don't want to play this anymore.
Don't be too hard on yourself, Dirk. It wasn't that. It was just bad.
That too.
I mean, It has such characters as Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, really? Chewbacca, Boba Fett. You can
Boba Fett.
unlock Darth Vader or a Stormtrooper or Princess Leia in a bikini and Mara Jade, but it also had characters such as Thok, who is a Gamorrean guard, and Hor, a Tusken Raider. Yes, Hor. H-O-A-R.
I can unlock Hor.
No, Hor is unlocked at the beginning.
Oh.
It also has two
get the
characters
game and I have
here
Hor.
in the list that I don't know who they are. Arden Lin and Jodo Cast. But they don't have
Cast
links.
sounds familiar.
Do what?
Jodo Cast sounds familiar.
It does, but I don't know why. I said his name isn't linked. There's no link. And Arden Lin, I think, might be a character they made for the game. Oh, the character Arden Lin was created specifically for the game. Thanks. If only they'd put in Glup Shido. So we've been going for almost this entire episode, and we've only talked about video games.
Yep.
That's true.
And there's still more games that we could go in and talk about as well.
Do we
They made
want
a lot
to?
of Star Wars games.
Do we want to branch out, or is it too late now?
What do you think?
I mean, we're almost to the 2-hour mark.
Stick with video. Why don't we stick with video game? Castlevania we spent 2 episodes on. Why don't we stick with video games as long as you feel like we've got enough and close it out, and then some other time we'll come back and talk about books and tabletop
media.
games and card games. OMG.
Mhm.
Anybody ever? On Pinball FX, which is a it's a platform where you can get pinball tables that have very realistic physics, but allow them to do things that you can't do in video game and in regular
Real life.
pinball games, like have characters walk out onto the thing and do stuff.
Mhm.
I have on Pinball FX 3. I've got a group of tables. Is it this one? No. Actually, there might have been a couple of groups of tables based on various movies and characters. And if I remember correctly, it's been a hot minute since I played any Pinball effects. They're all good. Like, I think there's a Darth Vader table just by himself. And a like a Starfighter Assault. Is this it? This might be it. You know what? I've got Steam open. I can just freaking go look. Pinball FX 3.
Okay, I'm looking up stuff on Jodo Cast. I do remember that he's like basically a Boba Fett cosplayer,
Oh yeah.
professional Boba Fett impersonator.
What's the modern phrase? Boba Fett at home.
Yeah.
Timu Boba Fett.
Oh.
Oh no, that's
I
way more
don't know.
expensive. Oh,
I don't know that phrase, but it sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. We've got Star Wars Pinball Solo, The Last Jedi, because of course there were a couple based on movies. Those came out later. The Force Awakens pack had Force Awakens, Might of the First Order. Just a whole mess of Star Wars tables. I did not realize there were this many packs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Star Wars packs. So there's a whole lot of pinball tables for Pinball FX3. I'm gonna have to. Do I still have this installed? I might have to play some of this later.
Did anybody actually play the original Star Wars game, like A New Hope, on the NES? It was
It was weird.
Uh, Dirk, if you thought that Shadows of the Empire had janky controls and all that, trust me. So I believe from when I rented it, and I'm casting my mind back, but I think there was an overworld, and you had to like find caves, and in the caves you would find like power ups and life ups and things like that. It was kind of sort of platformer shooter, kind of sorta. Does and Chewy, do you remember this? You made it sound like you kind of do.
No, I never actually played it. I'm just aware of the weird Darth Vader scorpion thing.
Darth I don't know that I know. I don't. Maybe I didn't make it that far into the game. There's a Darth Vader
Yep,
scorpion.
there's a point where I think it's in the sand crawler. I think I could be misremembering that part, but you reach the boss room and it's Darth Vader, and you're like, holy crap! And then he turns into a big scorpion because it's not actually Darth Vader,
Oh, yes.
and it's really silly. And I highly recommend you Google it and watch it because it's stupid.
There on YouTube, there's a channel, uh, Nintendo Complete, where they have a playthrough of it, and it's only a little over half an hour long. So,
But yeah,
and it says it's 100% completion.
it wasn't a it wasn't like an NES port of the Super Nintendo game. It was a separate game, but they were similar in that it was a 2D, platformer run and gun, and you were Luke Skywalker running around.
Hmm. I think I rented it and I did not get very far at all because I think I just didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Which, young Brian, that fits.
There have been a bunch of okay, I'm going to say more recent meaning in the last, 15 years games like The Force Unleashed 1 and 2. Dirk, did you play any of those?
Oh yeah, I did.
I
Oh.
played I played the first one. I own
Really?
it. I've
Mhm.
gotten I've gotten like 3 planets in and I was so sick of dying. Only later did I find out that yeah, it's like the Dark Souls of Star Wars. And I was like, okay, so it's not just me because it felt like I walked 3 steps and then I died. The there's a prologue and you're like, okay, it's holding your hand, and then there's sort of like a tutorial planet, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting the handle of this, and it's like, all right, go nuts, and I go to the first place after that, and it's like, yeah, you're dead, like, and I'm like, okay, so I back up, I figure out how to beat this group of things. I'm like, sweet, and I take 2 steps, and something else kills me, and I spent like 2 hours in it, maybe more, and then I was like, I think I'm good. People like the game, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like enough that it got a sequel.
Mhm.
It just got re-released on Switch in 2022 apparently. So,
Yep. Um. Yeah. If you're well the I feel like Jedi Fallen Order is maybe a little bit closer to what Brian's talking about because the Force Unleashed really to me kind of just felt um like hey you're given these and granted you can learn new powers and kind of do what you want in that vein, but it was very funny in the intro level as Darth Vader where you can be like I just want to pick up Wookiees and throw them, and you could like grab a Wookiee, hold him up in the air, and the Wookiee would just spin. Like depending on how he bumped into the environment, he could either float, head up, or if you like bumped him into the bridge, he would be floating but spinning in circles, head over end, and then you could just like throw him, drop him. You just hold him over the edge of a bridge and then just let go, and they would just fall off the bridge, like fall. And so you would do that.
What
But
Dirk is
yes,
talking about is in the beginning level, you play as Darth Vader,
Darth Vader.
on Kashyyyk, where the
Kashyyyk.
Wookiees live, and you're essentially a one-man wrecking crew as Darth Vader should be. That's the like tutorial level to show you what a real Sith Lord can do.
Yeah, what you can do. But yeah, as you go through now, there were some levels that were just it was kind of like I want to say Zelda-esque, where in order to defeat him, you have to block things, you have to do this or that in order to, eventually win. Like on the Raxus one, the junkyard world, to beat that guy, you had to do some special tricks in order to win. But yeah, you can't. It's kind of like, again, like one of those, like Castlevania. It's one of those games where you have to figure out what the strategy is to beat the boss. Once you figure out the strategy, you just have to keep at the strategy of how to beat the bosses. You just have to figure it out. But I do agree there are certain enemies that you have to be aware of them, because if you go in thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to pick this guy up and throw him, some of those enemies, like when you get to the Rancors, when you're on Felucia, the Rancors will mess you up. If you just walk in like, I'm just going to pick him up and throw him. No, you're not. A Rancor's going to grab you and he's going to eat your head.
I love the way Dirk just goes into all of this nitty-gritty stuff about these games.
Sure.
The second one was also fun, but it also went it turned everything up to an 11, and in doing so, it kind of broke it didn't break the fourth wall. It wasn't self-aware, but it made the game sort of like, okay, I feel like you're a little too over dramatic-y in how this is being done. The first one felt like, okay, this is a Star Wars game. The second one just kind of felt like it was the sequel, but it was the sequel turned up to 11 to be more awesome, but also with lots of feedback that made it kind of like,
So, for those that don't know, The Force Unleashed is a third-person action game where you play as Star Killer,
yeah.
Darth Vader's secret apprentice. Dun dun dun. And it's most famous for its like ridiculous set pieces, like pulling a Star Destroyer out of space.
Yep.
And
That is the most like okay, that's interesting moment from it, but yeah.
And the intro where you're Darth Vader, and then it got a sequel that was, as far as I can tell, not as well received.
It was not.
Yeah.
Like I said, they tried to outdo it, but in doing so, it felt like it was trying to find a footing that they just never really found its footing. So yeah, I played it and was like, yeah, I like the first one better.
And then the other one he just mentioned was Fallen Order, which actually is a Star Wars Dark Souls like, because Souls like is apparently a genre now because video game genres are pointless and stupid.
As we have said.
Yeah.
But it's one where you can't just sort of like hack and slash your way through the level. Stormtroopers can actually hit you and deal, significant damage to you. So you have to block their bolts. You have to work your way in so that way you can hit them with your lightsaber, or like it's doable, but you have to be when you're first starting out, you have to be careful. Whereas later in the game, after you've developed skills and leveled up your character, you can actually eventually just run through the stormtroopers like they're nothing.
Yeah. And it had a sequel, Jedi Survivor, that, again, I seem to remember it being not as well received as Fallen Order.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one that was going to be the next big thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then it came out. And I didn't really hear much. But that's not a good sign.
No.
Wasn't there a game that came out just last year that was like based on, was it Outlaws or
Outlaws
something?
just came out
Yeah,
last year.
Star
Yeah.
Wars Outlaws.
How is that doing?
Well, it's published by Ubisoft,
How much,
so
how
no
much
one
buzz
should
you
play
hear
it.
about it?
Wait, what was that, Dirk?
I said, how much buzz do you hear about it?
Yeah.
I don't have my ear to the ground lately.
It's published by Ubisoft, so nobody should play it because Ubisoft and has been harboring, sexual harassers for years and protecting them from any sort of repercussions. But other than that, I seem to remember all the haters that you would expect really hated it because the main character's a woman and that's woke or some sort of idiotic crap like that. But for people that aren't stupid, it was fine from what I remember.
Yeah.
It was
I haven't
pretty
played
good
it or
story.
purchased it. Yeah. My understanding is it just, yeah, like I don't, and again, I don't know a whole lot about the game or anything like that, but there are people who are like, yeah, there's a lot of really cool Easter eggs. But I mean, I haven't heard any buzz about it. I haven't heard much about it. I know it's gotten some expansion stuff for it, but it was being super hyped. And then when it was released, it just, I didn't hear much past that. So I honestly don't know.
I hate it when the choices are support a company that has scummy practices or resist and unfortunately join with freaking incels that can't handle women being in video games. That's not a
I mean,
that's not a good thing.
I think if you don't play it, I don't think you're joining with those people. But
Yeah, true, but
yeah, the overwhelming.
It's on my wish list, but my thing is I really don't want to pay $70 for the game right now.
There is that, yeah.
Because that was, I think, part of the reason why it may not have resonated as much is because it's part of the big upsell of, $50 games were then $60 games, and now they're $70 games.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how much money the company makes, they're still going to shut down various, like, lay off a crap load of people and shut down various game development studios that they own because more money.
mm-hmm.
So the video game industry at this point in time, here in mid 2025, oh my god, it's mid 2025 now, is a shambles and really needs to be reworked from the ground up. But then so does the whole damn country. So but yeah, I can't see paying $70 for any video game.
I'm about to say, it has to be something that I'm super passionate about for me to really pay full price. I will say that, going off, brand, at least Star Wars wise, I told Chewie and the guys that I bought the Ghost Bear expansion for Mech Warrior 5 Clans, but that's because I really liked the game and I was really looking for the expansion, and apparently the game itself, like the Mech Warrior game, didn't sell as much as they expected, so they started closing down. They laid off people, even though it was a really good game. So and that one, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pay full price for that one. I
Oh.
really liked it.
Excuse me. Holy crap! I forgot entirely about a game that I played that was amazing.
What's that?
What? That was creepy. Vader Immortal.
Oh yeah.
A 3-part VR game
Mm-hmm.
where you're a force-sensitive smuggler that Vader captures and uses you to gain access to some sort of ancient artifact thing, whatever. And it is really cool. I played it on
My
Star
understanding
Wars
is
Day.
that was a really good game.
Yeah, I played it on Star Wars Day, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. The first Star Wars Day after I got the quest, whenever that was. And played through all 3 parts of it, and it is a blast to use the blaster and the lightsaber and force powers and whatnot in VR. And each one also has like a I don't remember what it was called, like a sparring thing. Well, because you're shooting stormtroopers, but it's got a horde mode type of section that's not part of the main story that you can go in and just shoot stormtroopers and droids and whatnot, and that was also really awesome. A dojo, there we go. Practice against waves of enemies using a lightsaber and force powers. And yeah, it's not terribly long. I said I did all 3 parts in one stream, but it is, if you have access to VR, it is highly worth giving a shot because it was a blast. And even the final battle against Vader, which is not actually a straight battle against Vader because he's Darth Vader, he would just crush your skull, was a lot of fun. Apparently it got the Metacritic score of only a 69 out of 100, which seems low. But I also tend to enjoy things, so
Good for you. I don't think I've ever heard of this one.
Critics praised the game's story but criticized the gameplay as not being mechanically deep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because it's not terribly long. There's another VR game called Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, but I haven't played it yet. But I keep meaning to. It came out the next year, and is a longer experience from what I understand. So, yay VR! I'd completely forgotten I played these until I spotted it on this list of games here. I was like, oh my god, I played that!
I'm really trying to think if there's any Star Wars video games that I played that I'm just not thinking about now. There's so many.
Oh, I know there's one that we probably all played on a school PC 1,000 years ago. Star Wars Chess, which was battle chess but with Star Wars characters.
I don't think I did. I spent all my time playing Frogger and Oregon Trail at school.
Nerd. But I'm pretty sure it was just battle chess but with Star Wars characters. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Sounds about right.
Mike, you got anything else?
No.
All right.
Don't forget all the Lego Star Wars games.
Yeah, and I've played through some of those and they're fun, but I don't know. It to me, like I played through some of the Lego Star Wars games and the Lego Harry Potter games, and they start to feel like the same game just with different wrapping, you know?
Well, yeah.
That's kind of why I even though I have the Lego Marvel games and all that, the kids are the ones who really play those. I don't. I've played the Lego Star Wars one. I've enjoyed it. It is a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, well, I have to get this brick in order to do all this. So you kind of have to grind your way up to get the brick, to pay for the brick. And so you have to just, there are just times where it kind of feels repetitive. So, yeah, I mean, I understand.
Did you guys know there
That's all
was
the ones I can think of.
Did you guys know there was apparently, or at least way back in 2021, it was announced that they were doing a KOTOR remake?
Yes.
I did not know that. Oh, I guess I mentioned this in the pre-show, but I played Star Wars Galaxies, and I have a bit of a story with this. So Star Wars Galaxies was one of the first, I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first Star Wars MMOs, or massively multiplayer online games, like EverQuest, and World of Warcraft. And I had found a couple copies in stores, and they were all 50 or 60 bucks. Let's just, for the purpose of this discussion, they were 50 bucks. I went on eBay and I found somebody selling theirs, and I won the bid for like $20. And so all of a sudden, they got back to me and they said, "Oh, shipping's going to be 30 bucks." Where basically it was the same price as if I'd bought it at the store. And I kind of felt trapped. And I was like, "Okay." But I got it and I installed it, and it never ran very well on my computer because my computer was not a gaming rig. I enjoyed it to a certain extent. It felt like a lot of other MMORPGs. It like pick a starting planet, that was pretty cool. Pick a race and like a class, and then go hunt mobs for 30 hours until you can afford a better bowcaster. And try not to get blown up by asshole players who
In
will.
MMOs? No.
So for all that, all the aggravation and the money and all that, I didn't keep up with it. Surprise, surprise. It was an interesting idea, and as we have just seen from the last 2 hours of talking, there's a lot of material that comes from this universe. I want to remind us that this started out as a movie that turned into a trilogy, and that was basically what we had for the movies for like
For almost 2 decades.
2 decades. And spoiler alert for, well, this isn't spoiler, but for kids, and I do mean kids these days, liking Star Wars was not a thing you did like out loud unless you were with friends. But nowadays there's so much Star Wars. There's basically Star Wars for everybody, which you can see as a negative or you can see as a positive. I kind of see it as a positive because if you almost whatever your taste are, there's a Star Wars for you. But at the time it was just the trilogy and it wasn't really cool to be a nerd. So to see kind of where we are now, and we've only talked video games, and we did mention like the Ewok movies. Woo.
There was
To
a droid
see
Saturday morning cartoon too.
there
Yep.
was.
Yep.
Well, and we have gotten into Clone Wars or all that, but the point is, like, we've got racers, we've got platformers, we've got RPGs, we've got the stuff that has come out of the fertile ground of this franchise has been amazing. And so so the early attempt at an MMORPG wasn't the greatest, but I'm glad that they have still tried to go in all these different directions. If we are kind of wrapping up for the evening, I will say, looking back, the most the bottom line, I'm not saying this was the best game, but the most fun I ever had playing a Star Wars game, Star Wars video game, had to be Rogue Squadron. It's the only one I like 100%ed because I just couldn't get enough of it, and it was so fun to go try it with the different vehicles. It was the cool set pieces and the different planets and all that. Not saying it had to be anybody else's, but for me, looking back, that was it. That was the pinnacle for me.
You guys ever play any of the Tony Hawk games?
No.
Oh.
At other people's houses.
So I completely forgot that Darth Maul was an unlockable character in 3, and Jango Fett was an unlockable character in 4.
Cool.
And let's not forget that Darth Vader on the PS3 version and Yoda on the 360 version of Soul Calibur 4. And Starkiller was in both of them. The guy from Force Unleashed. So that's pretty cool, although apparently they were DLC characters? And you can't get them anymore because of the licensing running out, which is one of the problems with licensed crap. That's annoying.
Mm.
That's why emulation was invented. Yar. Because it's not piracy if they're not selling it anymore. And also, apparently this month is Star Wars month in Fortnite, according to the Discord. Oh, yeah, because I saw a commercial for that.
I saw a commercial for it too. I have never actually played a single game of Fortnite.
Well, you're your age. So,
yes. Ancient.
Why would you? You are not a child or a streamer. I'm not a child and a streamer, and I've also not played Fortnite. Not my thing. But anyway, so yeah, we should probably wrap it up then, I guess, since Dirk's been yawning for an hour and Brian sounds like he wants to bounce.
Yeah. I think I'm probably gonna need to. So I'm gonna refer to my earlier statement as my final thought. This has been great, and I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. But I have a motion that needs to be done, so I'm gonna let you guys go, and I will catch up with you later to hear what everybody's kind of. You don't have to do what I did for my final thought, but I'd be curious if you do to say what your favorite was or the one you enjoyed the most. But I have work I need to do. So, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, and may the force be with you always. Don't forget the always.
Oh, he stole
Very
what I was
important.
going to end on.
You can do it anyway.
Do you know there were 2 Angry Birds Star Wars games?
Yeah.
I
Well, I
did
knew there
not.
was at least the one.
I had no idea. This is ridiculous.
All right. So for me, in terms of Star Wars games that I had the highest, most fondest memories of, it's a toss-up between Rebellion and TIE Fighter. I played, again, between Rebellion and TIE Fighter, I spent a good chunk of my childhood playing those 2 games.
Nice.
So yeah, TIE Fighter was just, you very much were not the, we're gonna go and burn down everything and do bad things. It was, we need you to check these transport. We were trying to stop smuggling, and so it was very much the game of, you're not out to be an evil person. You're out to bring order to a galaxy that is just full of crime and chaos and everything. And it's also where I was introduced to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And then you're like, okay, Thrawn is really awesome. And then you read the Thrawn trilogy, and you're like, okay, Thrawn is really awesome.
Thrawn is ridiculously badass.
He is ridiculous sometimes. Like when he loses, he still wins in some of those. Like he was like, I'm going to steal a bunch of rebel ships. But in order to stop him from stealing rebel ships, they had to blow up the rebel ships. So it was like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys stopped me. Good job. So again, he is such a great character. But yeah, the TIE Fighter and Rebellion are my two games. So with that being my final thought, I'm also going to head on to bed, guys.
Nice. Well, night, Zert.
Night, guys.
How about you there, beardy face man? Beardy man
All right.
face?
Um,
Obi-Wan?
the Discord app on my phone started acting up right when Brian left the call, so I'm on my phone again. So let's see. There was one game we didn't talk about that I played a decent amount of. It was a Game Boy Star Wars game.
See,
That
that's
was
why I
also
said, Mike, you got anything else? And you're like, nope.
well, I mean, it's late and it was getting late, and I was like, I was kind of getting a little to the point where I was over the topic in general. But honestly, the game that I played the most of and had the most fun with really had to have been Episode 1 Racer. When I think about it and I'm honest about it, I'd just sit and run those courses over and over and over again, trying to go as fast as possible on some of them. It was really I don't know, something about the speeds you could get up to and the way the levels would render around you, and the feeling you got from everything rushing past you. It was pretty exhilarating. It was a fun time.
Nice.
And they used a lot of the movie's common music sting, so it was really that was really part of the immersive gameplay experience too. Our immersive Star Wars experience too, for everything that was going on. Yeah, I really liked that game. My brother and I had a lot of fun with it.
Gonna have to hook you up with some emulation, Mike.
Yeah. The N64 is still at my parents' house. I think Thomas fired it up a few years ago on a lark to play some GoldenEye. So I think it's still functional.
Nice. Snatch it. Take it home with you.
Yeah. I'll see if I can actually get it hooked up to my TV. My TV probably has left, right, and video port. Maybe. I haven't looked.
Yeah, that's a thing we don't really have anymore, is the component inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And for something like this, it's not worth getting a converter.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you really want to. If I had one, I'd let you bum it, but I don't need one either, so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about which of these games I loved the most and had the most fun with, and really none of the ones that I've played are jumping out at me, honestly, as terrible as that might sound. Like, the ones I spent the most time with were Shadows of the Empire and Dark Forces, and
yeah,
I mean, Shadows of the Empire had that, that opening with Hoth and then fighting the ATST on foot and Wampas and whatnot, and all that was like, whoa! And after that, it just becomes a video game,
Mm-hmm.
And Dark Forces is the same thing, once you get over, oh my god, I'm shooting stormtroopers, it's just a video game. And none of the side-scroller ones really did much for me, and I haven't played any of the newer ones. That I'm just aware of them because I am a giant sponge for any sort of video game knowledge, it seems. But I guess I'll go with Vader Immortal, because doing Jedi things in VR was just ridiculous. Like being able to grab a stormtrooper from across the room by the throat and lift him up and throw him at another stormtrooper.
Yeah.
It's a childhood fantasy that I just got to do. What? So yeah, I'll go with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So let us know in comments or in the Discord or on whatever social media. BlueSky? Join BlueSky. Follow me on BlueSky. Which Star Wars games you spent the most time with? And sorry we didn't get to non-video games. We'll do that in a future episode, I'm sure. That way we can spend longer on smaller things, because there's a billion Star Wars video games. There's probably less than a billion Star Wars than everything else, weirdly.
Yeah.
But the usual things. I've stopped promoting things. Hey, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/themanapool. That's where we do the shows live, and also where I stream stuff. Join the Discord. The link is down there. Wherever you're listening or watching this, the link is down there. Or just go to themanapool.com, because that just is links to all of the stuff. BlueSky and the Discord and InstaFace.
Right.
Or whatever it's called. I gotta get back to posting the thumbnails on Instagram. I sort of fell off of that for a while because it's Instagram and I don't care. But and of course, patreon.com/themanapool. Thank you very much. Let me thank our mythic lifeguards: Al, Kim Ho, Scuzzo, Jake Jansons, Michael, Timu Hillis Haryu, Violet Moon, Jason Kaus, Casey, Jason Doan, ALK Alters, and Andrew Odie. And of course, to anyone else at every tier, anyone listening, hope you enjoyed our last couple episodes. I've really dug our last few episodes. The roguelikes and the resource management thing, supply lines. I really enjoyed those two. And hopefully you did too. But with that, this has been episode 724 of The Manapool. Thank you all so very much for joining us. And, okay, sure, I'll say it. May the force be with you. Stupid Brian ripping off what I was going to say. Jerk.